Hello, and welcome everyone to episode 78 of Video Game Club. As always, I am your host, Tyler, and I'm joined today by It's Not Mist, it's Austin.
It's me.
And she's as fast as a bat, it's Mox.
Oh, thank you.
And Dracula's son himself, Aaron.
Perhaps the same could be said of all co-hosts.
Aaron, how have you been?
I've been okay. I've been a little sick with the seasons changing, the weather changing, but high spirits, good spirits.
Nice. Any games you've been playing that stick out?
Yeah, I've been
Symphony of the Night?
like 22 hours into Lies of P, which is right up my alley. Really enjoying that. I'm trying to think. I feel like I've gone through some shorter games since then, but really Lies of P started as a break from Baldur's Gate 3, and it's I just love those kind of action adventure, Dark Souls-y type of games, and it's a really good one for what it's worth.
Is it scratching the Bloodborne itch?
Yeah, absolutely. Big Bloodborne vibes.
I dabbled in the first, I think 30 minutes or so. It was okay. It wasn't for me, but for me, I would rather play Elden Ring and finish that. But
yeah. Well, if you're like me and you've beaten Elden Ring and you've beaten all the other things that scratch that itch, start to you take your licks where you can get them.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I also saw, Aaron, that you've been playing like a Vampire Survivor like.
Oh yeah, Soulstone Survivors, which that's what I had blacked out because I had put like 40 hours into it over 3 days or something.
Oh
it just became a thing where I'd just sit there moving that guy around so he would automatically attack things and to just watch the numbers get bigger. And I don't know, man, it was just such a Skinner box. I couldn't break myself free.
How does that
early
compare?
Access, so it's not even out yet.
Wow. How does it compare to Vampire Survivor? Is it basically just a clone, or?
I think it's basically a clone. I think that it has classes that have bigger differences than the Vampire Survivors. Each of the classes has like an ascension where they have some new features that they gain access to, and then there's like weapons that you can build and crafting materials. It's like I say it's wider, but it's not very much deeper. Like the gameplay is still pretty much the same, but
Got it.
You have like 14 classes, and they all have 4 weapons to unlock, and all weapons give you new abilities, and it's really wide. I can wade around in it for ages.
Right. Nice. Mox, what have you been playing?
Fae Farm. I played that when it came out. It is cute, but it has some things that need to be balanced. I'm in a place where I have to get through this one dungeon thing to move on with the story, and it got wickedly hard. So I got a little disinterested in that, and then started playing the Final Fantasy XIV update. They added how many new levels? 1, 2, 3, 4 new levels to the Island Sanctuary. That has been excellent. I really enjoyed that. I know there's new storyline. I haven't touched that yet because the Island Sanctuary is all I need.
Wow. Did you pick up Fae Farm on Switch or?
No, on Steam. For the Steam Deck. It works pretty well.
Nice.
I'm happy with it. I do think there is you had to pay for the deluxe version if you bought it on Switch. And I only wanted the deluxe version includes the expansion pass, and I only wanted the regular version, so that's why I got it on Steam.
Nice.
It's pretty good.
Nice. Austin, what have you been playing?
I played through The Last of Us Part 1.
Oh?
Which still really has not been fixed on PC. But, oh well. It was good enough that the story was good and gameplay was good enough that I was able to look past some of the graphical issues, but yeah, it really should not be in that state right now. I am currently playing Tales from the Borderlands, which it's very weird to go from hearing Troy Baker in in one game versus the other. Very different tones. But I just finished up episode 3 out of 5, and then I'm also working on Jedi Survivor, which is also definitely not fixed on PC. it's really fun, but also the performance is really bad. Even after the most recent patch. So
Tales of the Borderland has some really great openings to the chapters. Yes. And I think 4 and 5, the ones you're heading into, are some of my favorites. But I recommend anybody listening, like, go on YouTube and just look at the openings to those chapters. They're cinematic feats.
Yeah, it's been a very fun game, and it usually with Telltale there's kind of ups and then there's like lulls where it's like, okay, I have to do this part to get to the next good part.
Right.
And this one's pretty good about just keeping a good pace and keep it on moving. The big choices that you have to make are like, they do things, but you don't feel the weight of like, oh my god, who am I going to sacrifice? It's more of just like, okay, I get to just kind of express myself here. And so it's very low pressure, and it's just kind of you're along for the ride. It's fun. It's been good so far.
Nice. I just got back from Japan like 4 or 5 days ago. Went to Tokyo Game Show, which was really crazy. I played the new Fantasy Life. Yep. Yeah.
When are we gonna get it? I want it. How was it? Tell me about it.
So it was only in Japanese, which you may think, oh, well, that's expected, but almost everything there was in English. But this was one of the games that was only in Japanese.
Okay, so fan translation when?
It's going to be released in the West. It's just the build that they had at Tokyo Game Show was only in Japanese. It played really well. It looks good. It looks like a great sequel to Fantasy Life. So my expectations were exceeded for sure.
That's very exciting.
Yeah,
so I'm very much looking forward to it. Level 5 had like a massive booth there, which was, we stand level 5. So yeah,
favorite.
Yeah, it was great. I also got to play both of the new Like a Dragon games. So The Man Who Erased His Name and Infinite Wealth. Those were very good, but they were both timed, and you didn't have enough time to do everything in the demo. So if you wanted to like play everything that was in the build, you had to stand in line multiple times, and the line was like 2 hours long.
Well, how long do they give you to play?
I think it was roughly 20 minutes.
Okay.
I think. Yeah. But it was pretty good. There were some games that didn't have lines. It's like very westernized, like, Western games. So I got to play Stalker 2. Had no line. I just like walked up to the booth, played Stalker 2 for 20 minutes, and that was it was okay. I'm not like a big Stalker fan, but it was just cool to see and meet the devs and stuff. It's really cool. And then I played a bunch of like small indie stuff, which was really fun and really cute.
Like what?
Let's.
Fantasy Life just overwhelmed you.
Yeah, it really did. As soon as I got there, Mox, no joke, I was like, I'm gonna play Fantasy. I was with like a group of people, and I was like, I would love to hang out with you guys, but I'm gonna stand in line for Fantasy Life because that is gonna be the highlight of the show for me. So I'm just gonna sit there, and I got to watch people play the demo while I was standing in line. So I got to kind of see like, oh, do I want? Because you can only do like a few things for that demo as well. And I was like, oh, do I want to do this quest or not? And I was able to kind of see like, okay, I really want to do these things. Yeah, it was great.
Is it the same as the other one where you can do you're like meant to do all the jobs?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
I know. It's going to be awesome. And then I have been really hyped on the new RoboCop game that's coming out. It's like a budget title. It's going to be like $50, and I played the demo of that on Steam, and it was awesome. I loved it so much. You basically feel you're like a super overpowered cop, which is, I guess, what RoboCop is. But they did the gore and everything like so well. It's just.
How many people's genitals did you shoot?
Oh my god!
I shot I went mostly for headshots, but I can tell you that the heads explode, and it was it's very graphic, very gory. Well, I'll let you decide. But yeah, Japan was really cool. It's really nice to be back home. But if you want to visit Japan and you haven't visited Japan and you want to go to Tokyo, I mean, I only went to Tokyo and I was there for 3 weeks and that was a great amount of time. I feel like I saw a lot and I felt very comfortable in Tokyo towards the end. Obviously, you may want to see some other stuff in Japan while you're there, but I can say that it was very easy to get around, and that you don't need to know Japanese to visit and have a good time. But by the end, I definitely knew like some phrases and things that did help, that unlocked a little bit more of Tokyo for me. But for the most part, it was just a wonderful experience.
Didn't you go to the Pokemon Cafe?
Yes, ma'am. What
did you collect there? Because you have to like order the purchases ahead of time.
So you don't have to order any of the food or anything ahead of time. The only thing that you can, like, they have like a little store there where you can buy stuff. There was like one item that you had to pre-order, but we didn't pre-order it, so we didn't get that item. I think it was plates or like coasters or something. It was something like that. But we got like little plushies. We bought that the day of, and then the food and drinks and everything we got day of. We did win some like little plastic coasters through like a little fun raffle game, which was really cool.
Aww.
Anyway, I could talk about Japan for an hour, but it was great. So before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that that's listening to stay tuned to the end of this episode for an important message around Video Game Club. A little tease for you there. But we're going to jump right into the episode. We're going to save that message for the end. The nominations for this episode came from Aaron, and they were Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Live Alive, Live Alive, Live Alive, Live Alive, however you want to say it, Shadowrun, Dragonfall. And the winner was Castlevania Symphony of the Night, a 2D action RPG, or dare I say, Metroidvania, Austin.
The very first.
The very first Metroidvania. Developed and published by Konami, released October 3rd, 1997 on PS1 in North America, coming later to Sega Saturn in Japan, and it was ported to the modern consoles like PS4. I think there's like a 360 version as well, much later. 1997 in gaming, we had the dual analog PS1 controller released in Japan. The EU and Australia got the Nintendo 64. And I don't know if you guys remember the new style Super Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
That was released in North America. Games, we had Gran Turismo, GoldenEye 007, Final Fantasy VII, Diablo, Fallout, Star Fox 64, Diddy Kong Racing.
Banger
and
after banger.
What a bunch of games.
A lot of people... I know a lot of people put like 1997 up there and they're like best years of gaming or whatever, because it had some really, really, really good games. One that we did play for Video Game Club, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, was released. Was released in 1997, but only in Japan. So we have it as like in 1998 in the notes, in the history, in the sheets. But it was released in Japan, 1997. 1997. Aaron, were you playing games in 1997?
Yeah, of course I was playing games.
Oh, yeah.
I was obsessing over Final Fantasy VII. I was living my best life. I was being a little nerd with my nerd friends in school.
Oh.
Mox,
what about you? Were you playing games in the 1997?
No, but my dad would play Prince of Persia. And I would watch the really old one, the side scroller one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. Austin, 1997.
Oh baby, yeah. I was
in your prime.
All the games,
as many as your little 7-year-old hands could get a hold of.
Yeah, we were a Nintendo family, so we had N64. But if it came out on N64 and it was high profile, we had it. It was a good time for the Austin family.
1997 for me, my mom was like, we moved back to Missouri where I'm originally from, but I think 1998, I think it was the Christmas of 1998, my dad, my stepdad, but like my dad got us a Nintendo 64, and we have this photo I'll have to post in Discord or something of me and my brother holding up the Nintendo 64 with like two hands and Super Mario 64. It's one of those like crazy moments that I'll never forget. But yeah, it was awesome. Okay. Symphony of the Night. It was reviewed very positively, high 9s. People really like the freedom of exploration, the RPG elements without compromising the core gameplay, the story. The only thing that people weren't big fans of was the voice acting, and at this time 2D was considered not cool anymore. Like people were kind of moving on from 2D. Yeah.
I think Sony had a directive where you weren't supposed to make 3D or 2D games on the PlayStation.
PS1. Yeah. So some people were like, "Oh, these visuals are dated," but I mean, there are some 3D things in the game, like some 3D, some polygonal objects or whatever in there.
The save points and stuff like that.
Yeah, and some stuff in the background, but some people were like, "Well, this isn't 3D was all the hype, right? And now we're getting a 2D game." So some people weren't big fans of that. All right. Moving into the discussion. First point of business is gameplay, of course. 2D side-scrolling action-adventure game. Some RPG elements mixed in there. It's non-linear, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of abilities, weapons, stats. A la carte has hit points, which is pretty RPG-like. Magic. You can do magic attacks, which is pretty cool. As you level up, your attributes go up, such as strength, constitution, intelligence, and luck. There's like 8 different spells, I think, that you can do. Aaron, tell us about the gameplay of this game and what you thought.
So, take yourself back to 1997, right? You pop in your PlayStation. You're not sure what to expect because this game's been out. There's been derivatives of this, so it's kind of hard to like think about what it was like before. You had this expectation of, let's beat stuff up, gain levels, explore this big area, get new abilities. It starts out with you playing as Richter, right, from a different game. It ties up directly
sequel
with Rondo of Blood, I think. Even though it says Dracula X, it's not the Dracula X we got.
Right.
So it starts there, and you're playing as Richter, and then you beat Dracula, and then suddenly you're playing as Alec, this new guy. Well, new since like Castlevania 3, I guess, but he's Dracula's son. He's got his own, he's got a whole menu, which is not something we've ever seen before. We've seen he can change swords. He has a sword, and you can take that sword off, and you can give him a glove to punch with, right? It's like things that...
Or a shield.
Yeah, or a shield. And if you've been playing Final Fantasy games, you're used to these concepts of, giving them new equipment. And of course, this is a great game because you get to see the new equipment. Like the new weapons and shields they have their own unique sprites to them.
And they attack differently too. Like they've got different range and speed and...
Right, and special moves too.
Yeah.
And Richter, right off the bat in that opening, he has special moves that the game doesn't tell you about that you can figure out. And then some weapons have special moves the game doesn't tell you about. The game just has a lot of, it's a 2D game on a CD system, so they had tons of extra space, they had tons of room to work with. Right. And they just filled it chock-a-block with secrets and little hidden nods.
Yeah, it's I thought I really liked how it all came together. I thought it didn't feel out of place, like the RPG elements and getting the weapons and the familiars and the sprites and everything. It felt like it's still a Castlevania game. It's just like Castlevania Plus, basically.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's still snappy. You jump, you have your attacks, but it feels like you're playing a Castlevania. The Medusas act the same way. You hit the candles to get sub weapons and hearts. It's just that you have a health bar that will go up as you kill enemies, which is great.
And calling back from before, whenever we were talking about what we've been playing and stuff, I didn't realize how much of an influence this was on Vampire Survivors until I played this. And I was like, oh, all these weapons in Vampire Survivors, they're from this game. Like a huge chunk of them, like the holy water stuff, the book, the
book,
clock,
yeah.
like the crosses, like all of it. It's pretty crazy. Austin, gameplay?
I mean, yeah, I don't know what to add, but yeah, before this, my main experience with Castlevania was Castlevania 4 on Super Nintendo, technically Super Castlevania 4. And I loved that game, but it was also super hard. So like I hadn't beaten it at the time, but it was wild to me. It was just like, oh, I can fight enemies and get stronger, and then I can get past that part that's making me struggle in this game.
Yeah.
Getting new movement abilities, like movement is a lot better in this. Like you've got options to go fast. You've got things to unlock that can get you a lot higher. Platforming in Castlevania 4 is definitely like one of the points of the gameplay, but also it's kind of intentionally stiff because it's supposed to be difficult. And there are little elements, like there's a lot of elements in this that's like, this is definitely a Castlevania game. And there's actually a couple that playing now, it was like, oh, I wouldn't mind removing that. Like the sub-weapons spawning out of candles.
Yeah.
Like, I must hit all the candles. It's
right.
Because I'm playing Castlevania, I gotta hit all the candles, yeah.
Yep.
And usually I will end up with a sub-weapon that I want, and then I keep accidentally grabbing ones that I don't want, and then it's like, okay, I gotta run backwards and grab the other one. Okay, well now the one that I don't want is in my path, so if I'm in a tight tunnel, I have to like do some management to get the one that I want, and it's like, okay, wait, I don't think we needed to do sub-weapons in the candles in this one. I think that could have been shifted, and I think in later games that that was kind of shifted away, but that's one thing that I would have, like, it's cool that it's definitely a Castlevania game, but also, it's like, yeah, I could have done without that. I think that would have been okay.
And they don't add much. Like, the sub-weapons, they don't add a whole lot to the gameplay. There's something different. They're like a different vector of attack, but you're not going to be doing tons of damage with your, like, reflecting stone, or you're not going to be doing... that dagger is not going to be a clutch win for you, because you're going to do 5 times more damage with a single hit. But they're there. Yeah, it's like a vestige of the Castlevania brand.
I think they are a great fit for if you're doing like a Richter playthrough. They actually, well, if you're playing as Richter, then you're kind of playing a regular Castlevania game, right?
Yeah.
And so they end up having a lot more use there. So I guess for making it so that you could play this game in lots of different ways, like I guess it's a good fit that they are there. So I take back what I said, I guess.
They're really good at accidentally being used.
That too.
That's something they're really good at doing.
The axes are nice. There are some enemies that are in a weird spot, and the axes are
the axe. That's all I want.
I have a question. Although this game is like half of Metroidvania, everything I've read suggests that this game is like the quintessential, or it crystallized all of specifically Metroidvania, which is curious to me because it's only really half of Metroidvania. So I don't know what to make of that.
So we'll go ahead. You go ahead, Austin.
Yeah. Because I've talked about this on the podcast before, and I feel very strongly about it. So obviously Metroid came before this, and it has the formula of you need to find abilities to move to other parts of the map, and you've got ways to upgrade your health and things like that. But I think the reason, so you said this is half of the Metroidvania. I would say this is the whole Metroidvania, because before this, Castlevania was not like, this is Castlevania, but also everything before this is definitely not Metroidvania, right? They don't have that aspect of an open map. You play a level, and that's it. You'll get sub-weapons that can help you, but you don't need those to beat the level, right? You're not counting on items that change your gameplay and your movement, and re-exploring like a whole open castle, right? So this took Castlevania and it added these Metroid elements, and that's where the term Metroidvania comes in. And I think what importantly sets this apart from Metroid is the RPG elements, and that's why in the past when I've been like, okay, Axiom Verge, I don't call that a Metroidvania because you don't have RPG elements. It is a Metroid style game, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that, but if this is the first Metroidvania and this is what spawned that genre, then I think that you have to set apart what elements make this different from Metroid, and I think the RPG elements are a big part of that.
So then Metroid Dread, for example, would not be a Metroidvania?
Not to me.
Yeah.
That there's a Metroid game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I think it's the same thing. You're finding locks to keys, and those can be abilities that your character gets. But also, an important thing is the ability that you have stats. You have stats, and you can alter those stats. You can equip things to change your stats. Yeah. I think that all is what contributes to being a Metroidvania.
Yep.
Well, as you're talking, I was through a very sad series of unfortunate events unable to play this game, but I've seen dozens of speed runs of it, which of course the speed runs don't care so much about the leveling, although it's kind of like you need a certain level and then you just skate through the rest of the game. But prior to interacting with this game at all in this instance, I really assumed the Metroidvania category was different elements of Metroid plus different elements of Vania to put together into one kind of game. But really, I see what you're saying about Castlevania being Metroidvania, being both of them.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's why it's a standout. It's not linear. It's not a stage 1 to stage 2. It has that Metroid open world or open map feel to it. But you can grind. You can just stop. If you're having a hard time fighting a boss, you can go somewhere else and then come back to the boss. Unlike a regular Castlevania game where you just lose your lives, you have to start over.
Aaron,
or Metroid Dread, where you can't do that.
Yeah. Aaron, do you search out Metroidvanias specifically?
No, I enjoy action adventure games, whether or not they have level ups or not. I enjoy them. I play them when I find them. I mean, I've played tons of things that I would say fit the genre, but I don't know. I don't know if I seek them out.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Well, I read something that Dark Souls could be Metroidvania, or any of them.
Ooh, yeah,
sure. Because you're going through. It's an open area. You have stats you can influence. You have keys you need to find. These aren't abilities. You're not gaining new, move sets, but you are gaining new items that unlock doors. It's really, there's a game developer toolkit I think does these, or Boss Key, but they talk about how do you make a game and what is the locks and the keys that set everything up. So if it's a straightforward game where you just start at the beginning and you end at the boss, there's no locks or keys. But something like Elden Ring, you kind of need to go find the key that opens up this path, and then you have a shortcut, and then you have better ways to explore. So I can see the argument. I'm not here to make that argument. But
I think I would personally disagree. Like, I'm this obviously everyone can see things how they want to, but to me, a Metroidvania needs to have the keys to those locks be some kind of gameplay element,
like a slide or a double jump.
But like it's something that changes your gameplay where it's like, okay, I was here, I could see that there's a spot I can get to, but I can't reach it right now, or I can't get past it because I don't know what I'm going to need, but then
something,
you get something and it changes how you can play the game to where it's like, I can reach that, but also I can use this in combat and I can do other things with it. I don't know. To me, that is an important piece of Metroidvania, but maybe I'm gatekeeping the genre, and that's stupid.
Mox, from speedrun it, you said I know you weren't able to play it, but you've seen a lot of speedruns with this game. Is the main focus all about? I mean, obviously speed is important. Is there little tricks that they do to, like, what's the main trick? If
I
you
have to find the name of it. Of course, they don't say the name of it because they do it 100,000 times. But they turn into the bat, and you just switch between those two forms to get and maintain altitude to slide through, clip through stuff. That's I'm trying to find the terminology for it. Oh, shield dashing too. That's kind of like he moonwalks backwards. They use the wolf form to get up of slopes, but a lot of it is this is you turn into the bird and you like wing smash through just everything, and you go really fast with that one. That was probably my favorite one because it just looks silly. The speed run itself is very silly, and for the leaderboard for it. The only games I've seen this happen are games like Celeste, Super Meat Boy, where you are shaving milliseconds off of your time. Every other game, like how many people play Super Mario 64? And like there's probably, 100,000 times submitted, by the same people. Still not in the milliseconds. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the leaderboard is like the top 10 people are set apart by milliseconds. That is how close these get, which is very exciting for a game from 1996.
1997. Yeah, that's crazy. Wow. Moving on to the visuals. This game has gorgeous 2D sprite art, I think. Very pretty, and it has some 3D objects in the background or that happen like when you save, like Austin was mentioning. One of my favorite part of the visuals was the death animations for enemies were pretty cool.
Yeah, and they're so varied too. Like, one of the things that you'll hear me say over and over in this is that there's so many little details in this game. And yeah, like the way that so many different enemies explode or die, or they burn up, or they have the unique, like they become a silhouette and then fires burst through the silhouette and then their like form collapses inside. It's some pretty cool imaginative stuff. I know a lot of the designs were taken from previous games. They do a lot of reusing like monster designs, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I thought visually it's great. Mox?
It reminds me of an arcade game. It's very shiny and there's like very exaggerated effects. I think it's cute in that way. Like what's the word? Camp. Adorable.
Yeah. Does anybody want to add anything to visuals?
I would like to.
Go ahead.
I know you said at the time it was kind of looked down on for being 2D. I think this makes a great argument that we didn't fully explore what we could do with 2D, especially visually in the previous generation. It was like, now we can do 3D, but also we haven't really tapped out. Well, I mean, yeah, like if you look at the quality of some of the 3D that was out there at the time, it was like, okay, yeah, we can do some really rudimentary 3D stuff, or we could do some really spectacular 2D stuff, and those can coexist.
Well, look at the Castlevania 64 games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that this is able to overcome that, like, hey, this can be a great 2D game. Also, it can look really spectacular compared to 2D games that came before it. I think that's pretty awesome. I do agree with you, Mox. I had trouble placing exactly trying to word that, but I think describing it as being kind of like an arcade game is a really good way of putting it, because it's a lot of the effects are very over the top, and you kill something and it explodes into 5 million flames, and so that's a good way of putting it.
I like the slowdown stuff after the bosses.
Yeah.
Makes it feel like so much more significant. It's like, this one was different, I earned this. Moving on to the audio. So the soundtrack was composed by Michiru Yamane. She did Ganbare Goemon 2.
Wow.
Yep. Castlevania Bloodlines, Suikoden 3, and many other Castlevania games. And the most recent work is a game called 9 Years of Shadows, which came out this year. To me, the music in this game was phenomenal. And it was, for me, it was one of my most favorite parts of the game was the music, and how with each section of the castle that you went into, the music changed. It was so good. So good.
I agree completely. I think the music is one of the, the strongest parts of the game. I love when you go to a new area and you get that slow, you get the first few like line or bars of whatever instrument is going to be the main thing. And, you get down to like the catacombs or something, or the Colosseum, and you start getting that electric guitar, or you're in the librarian or the library, and it's kind of a more piano piece. I don't know. I just love the soundtrack.
Or you go to the shop.
I'm interested in this.
The sound effects also remind me of arcade games.
Yep.
And it's just like, it's just like adorable for that reason. I don't know what it is. It just is like, so cute.
That actually makes me wonder, because usually arcade games would be much stronger spec-wise than home consoles. So maybe as arcades were kind of moving into 3D, they could start to do more arcade-style stuff with the power of 3D consoles doing a 2D game.
I didn't even think about that.
I believe this game was originally going to be on 32X, I think.
Whew.
I believe so.
It had
I believe I read that.
a long development history. I mean, it came out on the Saturn also. But they also made they made a Game.com version of this, I found out today, which was like a...
What?
A black and white handheld. Yeah, there's a prototype that was discovered like a year ago. There's some footage out there, and honestly, it looks awful, but it's very impressive what they were trying to do. But yeah, they put this on a lot of things. They were really trying to, because it was in 2D too. It was like it was easier to put onto different stuff.
No one ever asked, should it be on Game.com?
People hated the voices, which again to me are just camp. Like if they weren't bad, it wouldn't fit.
But
this was at a time when voice acting in games was kind of new, so it's kind of like looking back at bad movies or like campy movies. Now it's like, oh, the camp is fun. But at the time, it's like, it's brand new, and it's just like, camp in video games wasn't really like a thing, I guess, at the time. So you'd be playing Resident Evil and going, okay, this game's cool, but also like, holy moly, this voice acting is terrible.
Yeah.
And I think it's now it's something that we can look back at lovingly, but I can see why at the time people would laugh at some of this voice acting.
Yeah, if they were trying to take it sincerely, right? If it was the day it came out, and you bought it and you put it in and you hear these bad, voice samples, maybe then you can come away and say, well, this isn't on the quality of whatever else I'm watching. But coming back to it, I mean, it's memorable because it's bad, right?
Yeah. Plus,
it needs to be campy.
Those voice samples, though, like they couldn't. Well, maybe they could have been on like Super Nintendo or something, but like the PS1 like allowed that to happen, right? And there's something to be said about that, I guess. But yeah,
it's when it's at a GDQ, everyone's just spamming the upcoming voice thing in the.
Okay, grouping controls interface and performance together here. So I own the 360 version, but I played the PS1 version on Steam Deck. It was, it's fine. The only issue I had was like the controls weren't always clear, and I'm sure there's like a manual for this game, because back in the day, kids, let me set you down, you youngins listening. There used to be manuals for games, and sometimes there was very crucial things in those manuals. For example, in Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon, it's very crucial that you read the manual because it tells you, tells you the controls of the robot. And slight tangent, I don't know if do you guys remember renting games and how the manual had to be like
you print it on the back of the box,
or photocopied?
God,
it's so weird. What a weird time. Anyway, I didn't know that the triggers did the abilities.
Oh no!
And I didn't know that I had the dog transformation or whatever it is, the hound transformation, until I didn't need it really.
That's so rough.
Yeah.
I have played through this game like a half dozen times, right? So, and it was contemporary, and it was something I talked about my friends with, and I had the manual, and it's so easy to overlook. Like, oh yeah, you would need basic information. Like, what does Spirit of the Wolf even do? It doesn't tell you anything in the game.
No.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. So that, to me, that was kind of, but that is, I can't think of the words right now, but like, I guess that's like how it was at that time, right? Like for games, like
it's a product of its time.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's a product of its time, and that's kind of that was just the way things were. Like you just read manuals that came with games, and they were important. But besides that, I thought everything else was great. It controlled wonderfully. It's great. Austin?
Yeah, I played this in 2007 on 360, and then I started it on my PSP because some Rondo of Blood remake came out on PSP, and that was included as a bonus. And I was like, I gotta get the bonus, and I'm gonna play more Castlevania Symphony of the Night again. And so I have not played it since then until recently when I went to record footage for this, and it's weird how much I remember both of the layout of the game and like how the menus work, but for the life of me, I could not remember not to push start. Here, if you push start, it just brings up like an Xbox pause menu rather than your inventory.
Really?
I had to get used to that. I definitely remember what you're talking about of not knowing how to do some things, like what do I do with this spirit I picked up or this spell,
right?
And so like I remember at the time a lot of things I had to just kind of figure out. I'm notorious for not reading the manual for games, which is why some games I just couldn't beat as a kid, like Aladdin on Super Nintendo. I never knew till somebody years later blew my mind. There's like a parachute thing that you can get to like glide around. I didn't know that you could use that to glide. I was just like, I don't know what this item is. I guess maybe this is like a bonus. I don't know.
That's the inferior version anyway. So you were kind of doing yourself.
Oh, wrong.
Solid.
That's just wrong.
Aaron, you're wrong.
Not gonna dignify
Sega fanboy in the
with a response. So, but this is one where it was just like, I've got to figure out and experiment and explore. And it was at a time in my life when I was more willing to do that and able to engage more. So this time I remembered, I was like, okay, I know I can transform into a dog with this now, even though it's been 16 years since I've played. And it still took me some time to figure out. It's like, okay, that's right trigger. Jeez, okay. I got a spell that lets you heal from drawing blood from enemies, and it's like, first you have to know where in the menu to find the spell, and then it's like, here's the button combination to do. Yeah. It's kind of hard to pull off.
Yeah, well, sure. First you have to figure it out, because it doesn't teach you anywhere in the game how to do any of the spells. I don't think the librarian has anything that teaches you them.
No, so at least in the version I played, which is the 360 version, there's a spot in your menus where you can find it, and then it says,
it tells you. PS1 does that too.
The PS1 only fills it out once you've done it once. It won't put the spells in there until you've put the combination in once. Yeah. It's blank when you start the game, even though you have access to all the spells.
Because I do remember there were some spells that I had to like look up how to do when I did my first playthrough. It was like, maybe it was summoning a fairy or something like that. It was like, I don't know how to do this, and I had to find, I think I had to find it online. But at least this time when I played, I did have, it told me the first spell how to do that, so I don't know what happened there, but yeah, it leaves a lot for you to discover, and this, I gotta remember, this is from the era where people would talk on the playground.
Yep.
It's like, oh, did you know you could do this? What? Oh my gosh.
There's also beginning of game facts. This was a thing I used a lot, or would check game facts a lot for. When my first playthrough, because there's a lot that doesn't explain.
Print them all out at the library.
Yeah.
Put them in that folder.
My family had a binding machine.
Woo!
We put binder clips on it, like the
fancy.
rolling spiral things, the best.
Also, anytime someone talks about the playground, I just think about Miu behind the truck.
Yeah, exactly. Like somebody who's BSing you, who's telling you real stuff, and you gotta go try it yourself. And if it's hard enough, it's like, can I really verify that this is not? Mm-hmm. But this is also an era where people would pick apart, especially if it was a popular game, people would pick every game apart, finding stuff. Like, I still have newspaper clippings of secrets from Star Fox on Super Nintendo, where it was just like that would sometimes be how you would find out about secrets. Like, it would be enough for it to show up in the newspaper. Just what an interesting time to be playing games, especially with some of the secrets that you get to later in this game. I'm trying to imagine not knowing the big twist halfway through. If you were playing this fresh, you're just like, there's what?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, or talking to your friend and saying, "Oh yeah, I killed Richter. I didn't really like the ending. What a bummer." And then your friend says, "Oh well, it doesn't look like he explored everything."
I think back then you probably wouldn't even know to be like, "Oh, this is a spoiler." Or it's like, no, dude, there's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
You do this and then that, and then you go over here.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
You're lying.
Yeah. Gosh. Aaron, anything to add, or we're gonna migrate into the story? Unless Mox, you have something to add as well.
No.
Okay. Aaron?
No, I think it's a great game. We can move on to the story.
Okay, so we already mentioned it's a direct sequel. We'll consider this spoilers from here on out, so we can talk about the big twist. I feel like if it hasn't been spoiled for you, oh my gosh, I don't know where you've been, but good on you, and you should play this game before it gets spoiled for you. Aaron, do you want to take the lead on this as a big fan?
Yeah, sure. So, like, general beats are Richter. You start as Richter in the end of Castlevania Rondo of Blood. You defeat Dracula. Dracula dies. Everybody's happy. You move on. Then several years later, the Belmonts kind of disappear, and Dracula's castle reappears. And now Alucard has woken up and has traveled to Castlevania to kill his father and put an end to the curse, the Dracula's curse. So that's how it starts. It starts with a little prologue where we talked about where you're a Richter and you play a different game for a little while. And how you do in that determines your starting stats. So if you do really poorly, you start off with bad stats. If you do really well, you start off with slightly better stats. It's a nice way of it, like, tying into the rest of the game. It's not completely, meaningless. But anyway, so you do that. You come back as Alucard to Castlevania. You come equipped with, really nice equipment. Your Alucard, shield, sword, and breastplate. But as soon as you basically show up and get to play around with those tools, Death appears and tells you that he's not your master, or you're not Death's master. Dracula is. So Dracula's going to keep you from getting to death. So he takes away your stuff, and then he basically says, good luck. Yep. And then you're off. Then you just go through the castle. You run into Maria, who is a Belmont, and they have a really fun scene together, kind of using really rudimentary storytelling devices, where Maria says, hey, do you know the Belmonts? And Alucard is thinking of Trevor from Dracula 3, or Castlevania 3, and she's thinking of Richter from Rondo of Blood. It's just kind of funny to see the different Belmonts, the way different people think of these storied vampire hunters. Anyway, you go through the castle. You can kill Richter. You find Richter where you fought Dracula. It's the same castle. And you can kill him, and you can put an end to the whole thing, and the castle disappears, and it's a little unsatisfying because you didn't get the right ending. You got the bad ending. If you explore the castle thoroughly, you'll find two rings, a gold ring and a silver ring, and the descriptions on them say something about wearing them in the clock room. And if you do that, a door will open. It'll take you to a secret area where you'll get an accessory. And if you wear the accessory when you fight Richter, you'll see that he's being controlled by Shaft, who's been in some of the other...
Who's this like green orb, right?
Yeah, he's just in a green orb. He's a Dracula fanboy. And
the worst.
If you kill the orb instead of killing Richter, then Richter breaks free of the curse, and you are moved into an inverted castle. So you go up the tallest spire of the castle, and a second castle appears inverted, to standing on the tippy top of the first castle. And then you get to explore all that. Yeah, and that's the big twist, right? That's like, oh, you thought you had a 98% of the game complete. Well, actually, this thing goes up to 200. So it just is a neat thing. The back half, the second half of the castle, there's not a lot of story in it. There's not a lot of new developments. You don't get a lot of new abilities that change things. It's kind of like a victory lap where you go through the castle and you get a whole bunch of new weapons, and then
But there's new enemies and bosses, right?
Yeah, there's new enemies, new bosses. Everything is flipped on its head, but you already have all the movement options. You already have very powerful weapons and equipment.
You do have to kind of figure out how to traverse rooms when they're upside down, because some of them are
weird.
But once you have the bat and the high jump boots, like even when you go back to the waterfall down in the catacombs or whatever, like, okay, well, I can get, this was a one-way trip before, but now I can go, however I want. And in this phase, you have to go around the castle, the inverted castle, killing 5 specific bosses, collecting 5 parts of Dracula, and you go into the center of the castle, you find Shaft, you beat Shaft, he brings out Dracula, you beat Dracula. Credits. Depending on how much of the castle you explored, you get one of 4 different endings. But all of them, Dracula's dead, Alucard's alive.
And Alucard is Dracula's son, right?
Yeah, if you spelled Alucard backwards, it spells Dracula.
He's half vampire.
That's true. He is.
He has a human mother. You're right. He has
There's a word. There's a term for it. I don't know.
Dhampir.
Yep, Dhampir.
But yeah. He's featured. I mean, they touch on some of the stuff in the anime or the Netflix show, like Alucard's history, and
just a great show, by the way.
Yeah,
really great. The new season is coming out soon, or it came out.
It's a new show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yeah. The first one was Trevor Belmont and Alucard. This one's Richter and Maria, I think.
Oh, very cool.
And I don't know if it is by Adi Shankar again. I know it was started without him, and he sued over that because there was a whole thing. But I didn't get to look into see if he was involved with this one.
Well, I'd like to point out that this Dracula has little to do with the Dracula from Bram Stoker, which is a little disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in name only, as most Castlevania things are.
Yeah. Does anyone have any bits about the story they would like to talk about before we go into our personal takes? All right. Moving right along. I will start us off. I really like the music. I thought the platforming and the controls were wonderful. I agree with the critics that the RPG elements didn't really take away from the core gameplay. I loved the variety of enemies, and I thought the secrets were really rewarding. There's some like secret areas that you don't have to get to get like little power-ups and stuff. And it was nice to find some of those without a guide. It's like, oh, this wall breaks. Cool. I'll get some increased health. That was really neat. I didn't like that it wasn't super clear where to go next, so I did a lot of backtracking, a lot of exploring. Younger Tyler with more time would have loved this. Older Tyler with less time isn't a big fan of it. And I thought the bosses were mostly easy, but there was a difficulty spike for me. when I got to the Richter fight. He was quite difficult. I did not finish the game, but I played a pretty significant part of it. I'm going to go play through it, though. But currently, and I'll update everybody, but currently it's at an 8 for me, a solid 8. That's what I would give it. Mox, do you want to add anything? I know you didn't start it or anything, but just I want to make sure.
It's a great speed run, and I'm glad it exists because it's excellent to watch. They have it pretty much at every GDQ, and I enjoy it every time it is there.
Aw. And you would recommend someone watch the run, right?
Oh, yeah. There's many different runs. They're all great.
Nice. Austin?
Yeah, so I did not play this when it first came out. I played it like 16 years ago. And I have not played it again since, like I said, I started it up on PSP, but that was the same year.
16 years ago was not 1997?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay, Austin, continue.
That was 26 years ago.
Oh, it's not. Okay, go ahead.
So, I have not played it again since then, and this time I really was dragging my feet because, like, as much as I love the game, I was just not in the mood to play it again, especially on my 360. I don't know why this has not gotten a PC release in all these years, but it still hasn't, which is frustrating. And a lot of the newer ports get rid of, like, they change out the voice acting, which is sad.
Heartbreak.
But when I went to go record footage, there were a couple things I noticed about the 360 version that I didn't notice before. There's filtering. They do like filtering to make it so that it's not as pixely, and I hate it. I hate that filter. So don't play the 360 version. Also, it doesn't have any of the cutscenes because it was like one of the early Xbox Live Arcade games, and they still had size restrictions on those.
No!
So they cut out all the FMV cutscenes. I mean, I still had a wonderful time playing it when I played it. And this, I usually would not go for 100% achievements on something unless it was just like really easy to do and not time consuming. And this is one of those games where I was just like, no, I liked this so much, I'm going for all the achievements, all 12 of them. I played through it again as Richter.
Dang.
I think one of them is to do like the starting Dracula fight without needing help from
Maria.
Maria. There's a few different, like, some of them were not trivial to get, and I was just like, no, I'm getting all of them. And I had a great time doing it. The Richter playthrough is very different. I initially thought, I was like, oh my god, this is going to be impossible. And then you kind of figure out some of what the tools that you need to use. And man, recording the footage for this, I still had a great time, even though playing it on 360 was just like, ugh, why can't I have a better version of this? I still remembered a lot of the layout. It was like, okay, I think if I go through here, it's the library. Yeah, there's the library. Making some different decisions on weapons. It's like I found one that was stronger, but I was like, yeah, but this one I can attack really fast, and I can just stab them to death. No, I had a lot of fun while I was recording it. I'm still not in the, like, I'm not in a place where I'm like, yeah, I really just need to replay Symphony of the Night. But as soon as I stopped recording it and I turned it off and unplugged the system, I was like, I kind of want to keep playing some more of that, like, even if I don't finish it. It's a great game. I can't believe that they created a new genre. This spawned a new genre, and how well they did. Usually when something, like, you look at Dark Souls, Dark Souls 1, it's still a great game, but it has a lot of rough edges that needed to be smoothed out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Demon Souls.
Souls-like games.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Demon Souls is, but yeah, that's the initial one. And this was just so forward-looking that there's stuff to this day that still doesn't top Symphony of the Night.
Yep.
there's some little things that have been improved, but a lot of things have not changed. That you have a fast travel system that isn't just fast travel. It's okay, you got to go to this particular point and warp around, and that's been improved in other ways. Like, okay, now you can pick which point you want to warp to instead of just having to cycle through.
Sure.
Or the sub-weapon thing, like that is needed for a Richter playthrough, but also, it's a little bit annoying in your main game. But the difficulty curve, the different ways you can attack enemies, the different playstyles that you can do, and just taking Castlevania in a very different direction without making it 3D. I'm super impressed with how well they did, and it makes me miss the Konami of the old days. I think I would have to give this game a 9.
Ooh. All right, Aaron, take us home.
All right. I can't bury the lead. I think it's a 9 also. I think it's it's not perfect. But I think that it has so many positives. It defined a genre, like Austin said, but it did it right in so many ways where it could have done it wrong. Like there's so many. It's 2D on the PlayStation, which we already talked about. That's kind of unique, but they really used that and made almost every room have something unique in it. Like every area has an enemy that does something that no other enemy does. There's not really any palette swaps
right
in the game, and you'll get enemies that are used in maybe one room out of 500 that are just there, and they have their own unique, their own unique design, their own unique setup. Same thing with just designs of the different rooms. You have the chapel where you can do something like confess to a ghost. Or you can take confession from a ghost. And that's just like a fun little side room. There's so many little secrets to be hidden around here. I think it's kind of the gold standard for other games in this genre. It's kind of like what I compare other Metroidvanias to. Like, do they give me like the breadth of weaponry? The different skills and movement options, the varied enemies and locations. I know you're kind of always in a castle, but the castle is a lot different from area to area. Mm-hmm. So I think that the presentation's great. I think that for being a 2D game on a 3D system like the PlayStation, they took some big chances, but I think it paid off in a lot of big ways. It's something that I really enjoy coming back to every couple of years. It's not something I want to play all day, every day. But every couple of years, it's nice for a little breezy 10-hour playthrough or so. And there's just so many secrets in here. So many little references to things, or so many little things to find. So in my playthrough, when you start a game, you name your file.
Yep.
And there are some codes in what you can name your file that can change how the game operates. So that's how you get Richter, right? There's an Axe Lord code that will give you Axe Lord armor that'll make you walk really slow and attack really bad. And then there's also what I used is a luck code. So my stats for the playthrough were I had 99 luck from level 1, but all of my other stats were 1. So in the beginning of the game, it was really challenging because everything could hit me or kill me in like 2 hits, and I could do no damage. But they would drop their items, and since there are so many unique items in this, and so many consumables and weapons that you're probably not going to find on your first playthrough, it was just, I don't know, it just so much there. Just felt like a great game, and by the end of it, I had this sword called the Crusadegum, which I'm mispronouncing surely, and that just attacked 1,000 times per button press, and I just kind of going through. It's a power fantasy, If I want to, I've got that Alucard shield rod combo. This is a game that has so much depth to it. I talked before about Soulstone Survivors being a wide game with little depth. This is a game that, I think that's it is a standard that other developers should kind of base their Metroidvania on. They're like, do we have enough abilities? Do we have enough stuff for the player to do?
Right.
Do we have enough things for the player to see and interact with? I don't know. It just is a great game. I'm glad that I got a chance to recommend it and to encourage you guys to play it. It's not going to be the last time I play it. I'm certain of it. But it created a genre and it defined how a lot of games that I enjoy operate.
Nice.
I'm curious, did you ever play Bloodstained?
Yeah, Bloodstained. Yeah, I played through that. I was a big fan, and then the NES versions.
Yeah.
Circle of the, or Shadow of the Moon or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of those. I
Same composer, by the way.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Same composer, yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing where I feel like the gameplay of that is a little floaty. I don't know. But,
I agree.
And the way that game has its powers, you can get some really broken builds really quickly. But it's more of what I love. It's more this Metroidvania
scratches
action.
that itch.
Yeah, exactly. Feed me that garbage.
Would you say that it doesn't top or equal Symphony of the Night, or did you feel like it succeeded in that?
No, I don't think that think that it exceeded it. I think that it's a really great showing. I think it's a really good game made by people who know how to do what they're doing. But I think that because it was just the 3D aesthetic of it. Pushed me away a little bit.
The look and the movement, and like you said, it was kind of floaty, and it's crazy that they nailed it so hard the first time, and when they tried to come and do a spiritual successor to it, it's just like they did so many things.
Yeah,
it's correct, and it still just could not. It couldn't. It's like lightning in a bottle, man.
What have we learned about spiritual successors, though? They're almost always bad. Mighty Number 9. Bad.
Ooh.
Ukulele. Decent. Not as good as Banjo-Kazooie.
No. I heard the 2D ukulele game was
good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think there's something to do with like working within limits also.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're using a game like this and you're stealing enemy sprite or sheets from your previous games, you're trying something new. I don't know. I just think that they were a little bit more risky here, and then they got too complacent when it came to Bloodstained. But Bloodstained's as a franchise now, so
yeah. Also, limitation really breeds creativity. So
yeah,
and yeah, you touched on that. All right. Well, that was a little dive in our take on Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now it's time for that important message that I teased at the beginning. Unfortunately, this will be the last episode of Video Game Club for the foreseeable future. It's been a wonderful time, and I've loved getting all of these lovely people together to discuss games voted on by our passionate listeners and viewers. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone who participated in anything related to Video Game Club. Thank you to all our special guests. Thank you to everyone who voted, nominated games. Even if you listened just for 1 minute, thank you so much. I can't say really what will be next for myself for the others, but just stay tuned to Bombchu Discord for any updates. When we started Video Game Club initially, like we set out to finally finish some games. Me and Austin were struggling to finish things. We started a bunch of stuff and never saw things all the way through. And then Mox, you came on shortly after, and we achieved that goal. And I love how many games I've experienced that I just wouldn't have played if Video Game Club wasn't a thing. Austin, seriously, thank you so much for going on this adventure with me.
Dude, yeah.
It's been great. And Mox, thank you for joining us and always tagging along. And we'll definitely miss you as our resident lore master.
Thank you.
And Aaron, I'm so sorry that you only got to experience a small piece of Video Game Club, but thank you for joining us regularly. It's been...
Yeah, it was my pleasure. It was a lot of fun while it lasted.
Great having you. And last but not least, I just want to thank Andron so much for doing all the editing, publishing, everything. We play a game, we get up here, we take some notes, we talk, but Andron does all the stuff behind the scenes to get it out to everybody and make sure everyone can listen to it or watch it. So without him, nothing like this wouldn't have happened at all. I just want to give everybody, Austin, especially Austin and Mox, if you want to say anything. Mox, do you have anything you want to add?
I have nothing to add other than thank you.
Yeah, of course. And Austin?
I had a great time doing this. Like you said, it was nice to finish some games I would not have otherwise. Get to expand my horizons a little bit on. There's some games in here that I never would have known about if we hadn't played them on Game Club, and I consider myself to be pretty well versed and pretty knowledgeable in the gaming space, but I to this day, like yesterday I was at a party and I was talking to somebody about horror games. They're like, yeah, I've been playing Amnesia, and I was like, have you played Soma? Because you need to. And I wouldn't have had that kind of experience without doing Video Game Club. So I'm very happy we did this, and yeah, I'm gonna miss doing it, but no, this was a great experience. Very happy to have done this.
Yeah. Aaron, anything to add?
Not much. It's been a lot of fun. I'm sure it won't be the end.
Yeah. It's everything rises from the ashes, right? There's some quote there. Yeah, so just again, thank you everyone for listening, interacting with us in some way, comments on YouTube, subscribing, everything. I'm Tyler, and this was the last episode of Video Game Club, episode 78, Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, and we're out.